Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Unfiltered Race Fans Only podcast, episode 21. We're back with the original trio. All our special guests decided that they didn't want to come hang out with us today, so that's okay. Our feelings aren't hurt at all. All right, maybe a little bit, but everybody's a little busy. So I'm, following up on this Easter off weekend, but um, we did still have some racing. So we had races at Rockingham for the trucks and the Xfinity guys. We'll get into that, and then there's some news out there for various things on the schedule. A little bit about the lawsuit, Hall of Fame announcements. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into what we saw this weekend. So we'll start with the truck race. We returned to the Rock. It's been repaved. My initial reaction, I saw a lot of tire rubber laid down, which made me happy. I was worried with a repaved that we'd have hard as rock tires that wouldn't wear. It looked like the track took rubber really well. Um, and I was pretty happy overall with the racing I got to watch. What about you guys?
I enjoyed both races pretty good. Shocked at the outcome of the truck race with the long green flag run. But it's old school racing and old school track, and it brought back the old school race feel, and it was good to have it back. Rockingham was my favorite track when I was a kid, teenager, and to see it back on the schedule felt really good. Definitely enjoyed watching it for sure.
What about you, Chris?
The one thing I thought was amazing, and I don't know if this is something you guys ever noticed, but do you ever remember watching some of the old school races growing up and not, I mean, just we haven't seen it for a long time out of the cars that we have now, but you get into the corner and you can physically see the jump that one car will make when they get back in the gas before another one. I mean, it just looks like all of a sudden that either the other it just almost looks like the other car just slammed on the brake pedal because I haven't seen that in a long time, and I saw that in both series this weekend where somebody, I mean, it just was the, like Blake said, the old school feel. It was cool to see cars react that way on a racetrack again, as opposed to just to follow the fucking leader that we seem to not be accustomed to, but just what we kind of seem to be stuck with in the Cup Series right now.
Yeah, from the time they opened practice and I was watching them go around, one, I was glad that through the ownership hands here over the years, that the track has managed to stay around. It hasn't gone away because we've seen so many tracks taken away or become warehouse places, whether that's Auto Club or some of these others within the Central Carolina area. Rockingham is a unique track. It's not a D-shaped oval. It's not a regular oval. It's got its own unique characteristics with some really high banks, some really tight turns. It reminds me a lot of like a Darlington in its uniqueness. So I'm glad it's back on the schedule. It's a unique challenge for the drivers. To your point, Chris, I definitely could see that, when they would come around. And you could see how coming out of the corner, if they did it too soon, and they had somebody on their outside, it really pinched off their momentum and they had to choose between, getting loose, potentially taking out their competition, which we saw that happen with Stuart Friesen, where he got wiped out and where Rogers just got loose. And, one thing leads to another. It was pretty crazy watching some of the things we saw this weekend. Um, I really enjoyed the truck race. I like the old school feel of it with the fuel mileage. And, I know a lot of people, we know some of them complained that they didn't care for that style of racing. But that's, what we all grew up watching. I think that goes back to kind of what we talked about with Bristol and Homestead. Uh, back to back, are people just so accustomed to the instant gratification that they've forgotten what racing really is? Um, they
There,
could
there
have,
really are
yeah, go ahead.
there's really people complaining about how the racing that happened this weekend.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I-
Wow.
Now, when we get to the end of it, we could talk about that from a what I would like to see from an officiating standpoint. But at this point, I don't know what they want. Blake and I had this conversation earlier. Like, I don't know what the heck people are looking for other than just they're clamoring for Rex. I mean, you saw tons of strategies. Heim had one of the fastest trucks. They pitted under one strategy. Ankram's team went for it and came out on top. I was really impressed at their ability to milk the fuel. I mean, that's no small feat. That's a big deal to be able to manage the gap, to stay out there in front, knowing the guys have fresher tires and they're coming. And tires did matter. Um, and still hold off for the win, knowing that that lead is getting eaten up a little bit at a time. So um,
But
that one, yeah, go ahead.
not only did tires matter, there was two grooves, two and a half grooves,
Right off the
and
bat.
to to have a track that's I don't remember when it was paved, but to have a track that is newly paved essentially already have two grooves, two and a half grooves. It just welcomes racing. And of course, like I kind of said last week, you've got people complaining about Bristol, you've got people complaining about Rockingham now, but there's not enough action. I don't know what you want because there was racing all over the track at Bristol, there was racing all over the track at Rockingham. There was far more wrecks in the Xfinity race
Hmm.
than the truck race, yet there's still people complaining about the Xfinity race not having enough action. I don't get it. I mean, you had a fuel mileage thing going on with Ryan Sieg. You had a fuel mileage thing going on with a couple others. You had the truck race that was all fuel mileage, and yet people were still complaining. Outside of the people complaining, I thought it was a great weekend. The only thing that kind of took from the weekend was the winner of the Xfinity race got DQ'd, and it
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, in a sense, you could kind of see it coming because nobody could touch the two all day. When the two wanted to make a move, it made the move. It was insane how
Yeah.
good that car was, top, bottom. It might have took a couple laps to do it, but he could do whatever he wanted. I know RCR is appealing. I just don't see them winning it.
Yeah. I had to go look at anybody who is technical in nature, like I think we are. I really enjoy the content that Bozy puts up on Twitter. He'll throw up a diagram, he'll circle the parts, show you what the rule they're talking about and why, how it had to have been broken or set up in order for it to violate it. So I enjoy that part of it. Um, I'm surprised and I'm not surprised that they had an issue post race, but I'll say that I'm glad that it was overturned very quickly. It wasn't like we waited, a day later. It was within a little bit that NASCAR, I think that's a good sign to see. Not that I want to see anybody disqualified, but that you see it happening faster and being more transparent right away, uh, which I think lends credence to the, more equal enforcement of the rules, which is good. Um, but yeah, I mean those cars looked like they were a handful this weekend,
That
which good. That's what you want.
that's what I thought was amazing about the weekend was watching. I mean, watching those cars. I mean, just watching the drivers through the windshield on some of those camera views and watching them come up off the corners was like, holy shit.
Mhm.
It was like watching a race from back in the 80s and 90s. It almost looked like the old bias play tire days.
Mhm.
It was just watching how loose some of those cars were.
Yep, and you could see coming up out of the corner, the back end step out, and you could see it coming through the turn where just all of a sudden they'd be going, and the fact that the track isn't smooth, that it still has character, is what makes it such a good place to run. You could see it with Raja, like he was down there on the bottom, and all of a sudden his car just shot to the top, and then in saving it, unfortunately, he took some people out. That wasn't real, obviously deliberate. That's just racing. And you can see how on edge when Jeb Burton hit Monsignor in the Gibbs 19, he just barely touched him. You don't normally see that at a out of these Xfinity cars, these have the most downforce of anything
Yeah.
uh, out there, and they've got the most scienced out side draft and everything else. So you usually don't see like and it literally looked like he just reached out and touch tapped him, and the back end of that car was gone coming up
Hmm.
out of the corner, which was, which tells you how on edge they were, but also how demanding that track had to be, which is good. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of sparks we'd be seeing out from under the cup cars with all that underbody shit on them. And
Yeah.
bottom out. You'd probably have a lot of wrecks just because the cars would be so on edge. I think they would really have to get the cars up off the ground to run there if they were to bring the cup cars there because all that underbody stuff and all the real characteristic that's in that track. Because the best line is on the bottom for the shortest way around there. But I was
Not not only
really,
was not only was off the corner hard, getting into turn one is just that's got to be the hardest turn one in all of racing when it comes to ovals. It tightens up, gets real narrow, and you you saw all day long cars would float up the track trying to get in there too shallow and just go up the track and almost take the guy out from outside of him. You had that wreck with Catherine Legg that half of the racing community feels like she did nothing wrong, and the other half feels like she should have been up a half a lane. I'm with the she did nothing wrong because the first guy ahead of her, the first guy that got through, he got through just fine. But they Sawallich's, apparently he can't see that there's a car in front of him, and just took everybody out, including poor Casey Kane there.
How many
yeah.
laps down was she at the time?
I don't know, don't care.
I honestly
The
don't
guy,
know.
the car in front of them got through. 18 went in there a half lane higher than what the car in front was and took her out.
Yeah. I just think of that particular incident more along the lines of the same kind of way they drove Haley Deegan. Same thing, no respect,
None.
just driving over people.
Well,
But
and I would like to go back and I'd like to hear. I mean, me and Blake talked about this a little bit at the beginning or earlier in the day too. I'd almost like to hear the spotter transmission because where he was sitting, being off centered from that car in front of him, I don't think he ever saw her. I think he had no idea she was there, and I'm assuming that the information wasn't correctly passed to him from his spotter going into the corner, saying you need to stay in line with the car in front of you, because being offset like that, he didn't see her until he was there.
and that's
All he's looking at is the back of the car in front of him.
and I gotta say that's something I hadn't thought about was the spotter traffic itself because they haven't spotted for a race there in a really long time, so they're not used to calling
Yeah,
those cars around there at those unique angles. And I don't even know where the spotter stand was this weekend, but I hadn't even
It was
considered
on top of
like,
the start finish line tower.
okay. So, but it was great to see.
but
So it was our first time back there. I thought it was great to see, the stands were packed. It was sold out for both days.
Not
Um,
both days, just Xfinity. Trucks was pretty damn full though.
well, trucks looked pretty full.
Yeah.
Um, but it looked like it had never been abandoned or ignored. Like it looked like a brand new facility, top notch. Stands looked great. So I'm hoping that, whether we go there with Cup or not, I'm hoping it gets a spot on the schedule for a while, because it is a unique place to go, unlike so many of the places we go that are similar in nature. I think it's nice to have a bunch of these standout tracks on there, different, that require different levels of skill and talent in managing your equipment. Um, if you listen to DJD earlier in the week, when Steve Park was on there, he was talking about when he was learning how to drive that place, uh, you know, that he would go into the corner and Dale would let off the brakes way early, and he'd think he's going to run him over, and then he'd get through the corner, and Dale's 2 car lengths ahead. Next lap, 4 car lengths ahead, then six, and then like he's just gone. And just the way you drive that track is so different than the way you drive some of these other tracks. So uh, I just love this track as a whole. What you got, Blake?
They did say that the infrastructure itself was not very good this weekend as far as parking, getting people in and out. They said there was a lot of issues getting in and out, but uh, as far as everything else, everything went sound like it went pretty good. It don't sound like they ran out of food. It don't sound like, anybody hated the stands or anything like that. But the getting in and out sounds like they would need to work on that before they could add a cup date back. And then
Yeah,
there's people that think that it should stay Xfinity truck standalone, um, which I could sort of get behind that, but at the same time, I think we need to bring Cup back to the Northeast more than we are trying to make all these damn street course nonsense and going to Mexico and Canada and all that nonsense.
I was just going to say almost the same thing. I would rather see less races out here on the West Coast because we've never been overly abundant with them anyways, and they found a way to fuck us out of Fontana now. So why not take
in
the
Irwindale.
cup back? Yeah. Well, but they never ran Irwindale though. I'm talking about actual
No, they
physical
did let
cup
it
races.
die when it could have come back. They had opportunities to save it.
If you weren't going to do a damn thing with Fontana, why the fuck do you let that one go?
Yep.
Why'd you let it get gone? I mean, officially closed, and now you're. I think they've already before it even closed, they already had whoever was buying it had plans it's to destroy it. It's not even going to exist anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, I'd much rather see the race go back to a track like that. Like, I mean, I think the standalone races anymore. Uh, if I understand what they were doing in the past with some of the standalone races, but if you really want the eyes, it, not necessarily eyes on the sport, but for me, if you're going to keep rushing these kids into Cup like you're doing, you need to run them at the tracks that they're going to be running on in Cup.
Yep.
Get them the experience. Otherwise, yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on the whole thing. But yeah, if you're gonna bring these kids in and you're gonna rush them in, and you're gonna expect them to go out and not drive like, I mean, some of them are gonna drive like assholes anyways. I mean, Hocevar's proved that. But uh, but just to go in and just have the experience on these tracks that they need to have, you're going to take rookie stripes away from them. So nobody else on the track. I mean, to an extent, yes, the drivers in the seat have an idea that's a rookie in that car. But the way the paint scheme changed, do they really?
Right. Well, I would
I
like
mean,
to. So before we get further into other topics, for the race weekend, besides just the overall, uh, you know, I thought great racing. Track looked great. Stands overall looked great. The performance by Casey Kane, extremely impressive, having not been in a full-time, long-term race or
he
car.
was he was fast.
Long time. He was fast right off the bat, ready to go. He went there not expecting it to be repaved, so that was something. I mean, he won there in a truck, uh,
Uh,
and so that had to have been a shocker. So I was impressed with that. I listened to when he did his DJD with Dale, and Dale's got a hard on for everybody should come back and run full events part time or whatever. But I think a lot of people got away from it for various reasons. Casey's with was health. The longer he did it, basically his body couldn't sustain it or whatever. But
Couldn't rehydrate.
yep, just couldn't. The longer he went, the hydration process for his body just deteriorated. So
I was at his last Cup race, which is crazy to think that it's been since 2018 since he's been in a stock car.
yep. But so overall,
well,
the weekend.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
that's a funny take though that Junior thinks everybody should come back and do it except for him.
Yeah, he's getting out of it, but everybody else, he talks whether it's Truex or
Everybody else should come back and do it, but him.
yeah,
He,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, he did do it for how many years now? I mean,
But yeah, when he talks to the other guys, do you miss it? Oh, Carl, you should come get in this car. Oh, Kane, you should come get in this car. You should do this more often. Pick a driver that he raced against that has been away for a while. I'm like, oh yeah, you should come get in one.
Yeah, I
You'll,
know he's trying to get Kenseth to get in one.
to me, if he wants to do that, what he should do is get all those guys together and all y'all go run cars tour. That would be better for the health of that series, for the health of the sport long term than going into Xfinity in my mind. But that's a whole nother day.
I was going to say something real quick on what
Yeah, go
Chris
ahead.
was saying with the. I kind of opposite thought on this. He said we need to not have as many, standalones need to be racing where the Cup are. I disagree because I think for the health of Xfinity and the health of trucks, they need to have as many standalone events as possible for so that I mean, we've talked about it before, the fact that the truck series their their purses are less than $1 million. The Xfinity is maybe two sometimes. Like it's and part of that is the fact that there's nobody buying tickets to those because they're all buying tickets for the Cup race. So what you do is you take them to a Rockingham or just take them to like the beach doesn't exist anymore, but they used the Xfinity series used to go to the beach. They used to go to all these other small tracks, Colorado. You know, we need to do that again because it'll give them more fanfare, it'll give them a bigger purse, and you'll have sellout crowds because their tracks that never get to see those cars,
Yep.
trucks.
I mean, the part of that, maybe not so much the Xfinity, but the part of that I would agree with the trucks is if you're really going to do that, then bring it back to the fucking West Coast where it started.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already deprived of cup races out here, anyways. We have Sonoma, we get two at Vegas, we get two at Phoenix. But honestly, for me, why they sell out Phoenix all the time is beyond me.
There's
Because
only
when we,
50,000 seats.
well, not just that, but when me and Cammy went in 2013, we went was it the first or second week of even if it's the first week in November, and it was 93 fucking degrees.
Yep.
That's insane to sit out there and bake in the fucking sun at 93 degrees in the friggin' middle of November. That's just insane. The racing there has always sucked. I don't understand why we've always had two races at that track.
Well, we'll get
Well,
to that because that's a topic of discussion we're going to get to here in a minute. But at least before I wrap up my Rockingham weekend thoughts, my first, so I got two things. One, to people's complaints about the fuel mileage stuff. I have no problem with fuel mileage whatsoever. I've always liked that aspect of it, whether it's, a small track or a big track. That's part of racing. Who can manage their equipment? Okay, some days you're not going to have the fastest car, so you got to find a different way to win. You got to out strategize them, whatever. What I don't like, and 100% transparency. I was a Gordon fan, Harvick fan. Harvick at Talladega played the fuel game, stayed out, tried to make the next round, wrecked a bunch of cars 1 year in the chase or in the playoffs. I don't like it when cars stay on the track knowing they don't have enough fuel to go the distance and they know they're more than likely going to run out in front of like the whole line and cause a big pileup. That being said, that's the chance and the choice they take. The one thing I would like to see change if you're going to do that, if you're going to take that gamble, that's fine. That's your right. That's part of racing strategy. And hopefully it doesn't backfire and screw up a whole bunch of people. But you have to stay on the racing surface. If you get off the racing surface, if you go below with the yellow line, the white line, you're black flagged because obviously you're down there because you don't think you have enough fuel. So either you're going to the back or you're going to the pits, but you're not maintaining your position. You're not maintaining your position under the rules. So I think if you have to pull down on the flat of the apron because you don't think you have enough fuel and the other people
To
don't,
hold fuel pressure.
that's an unfair advantage you're giving yourself. Why is everybody else adhering to the rules and you're not? So the one change I would make across all series, if you want to play the fuel mileage game, that's your choice, but you have to stay in line. You have to stay under caution, you have to stay in line, you have to stay on the racing line surface. If you pull down, you're either pitting or you're going to the back. That's it. That way, there's no way those people can play those games. It kind of forces them to really reevaluate their strategy and would hopefully prevent some of the just if the goal of some of this stuff is to save the team's money, prevent piling up millions of dollars in equipment because somebody's just overplaying their hand, basically. So,
Yeah, I still don't understand. Ryan Sieg's running out of gas with 12 to go under caution. You're not going to make it, so why didn't you pit? You're
yeah.
barely you're running out of gas under caution. Do you really think you're going to go 12 miles on on that when you're running out under caution? It doesn't make any sense. Now, some people are mad at the 16 for stumbling on that restart, but he wasn't stumbling under cautions, and they felt like they possibly could make it. So like there is a bit of a difference there. But as far as C, like you're running out, you have sputtered under caution. Pit your car. There's no
Yep.
reason to stay out. You're not going to make it, and then you end up destroying a perfectly good race car.
Yep. Well, one of the things that the thing I struggle with is if you were to adhere to what I would like to see, the reason why I say if you pull down there, it's just a straight up black flag. Is I want to make it a very simple ball and strike call. I don't want there to be any interpretation, any deliberation. If you pull down there, you did so of your own free choosing, at which point everybody knows you crossed that line under caution. You're either going to the back or you're going to the pits, one of the two. But there's no, oh, I did it on mistake. Well, let's think about it. It's different for this person than it is for this, just period. You cross that line, you're done. You go to the back. So at that point, if you're going to the back, you might as well go in and pit. So you kind of force their hand, which is how NASCAR used to do things on the old way. You know, if you didn't maintain pace speed, if you didn't maintain your position, you lost it. So they've gotten away from enforcing their own rule. They pretty much have a rule for this already. They just need to enforce it. But the other thing is on a separate discussion topic is, do you think back to the standalone point, would you want to see Cup go here? Yes or no? Do you think it hurts it? I would like to see it, but at the same time, I see the merit in having the other series have a standalone event. I like that with the big series being off this weekend for the only, weekend of the year and the Easter weekend, that you still had racing. It was great to be able to see, but it was for the other two. I'm curious. I haven't seen the TV numbers yet. I'd like to know how they did for this, mostly for the Xfinity, since that's the one that's on the CW and the cable side on an Easter Sunday. How did they do comparatively to like last year? So, but that's that's my opinion. I think if the Cup guys go there, I think you branch up even further up the track. I mean, that track's got some really high lines. I'd really like to see what Reddick, Larson, Bell could do up there if it would come in.
Well, not to mention you'll have another
Yeah,
year of sun beating down on it, another year
yeah,
of the sand hills beating up on it. I mean, every year that track sits is better for it for aging, which brings me back to Chris's favorite topic of mine. I'm going to vote for a Kentucky race for Cup before I am Rockingham, but Rockingham is my second choice. I always wanted to go to Rockingham as a kid, and now that I'm an adult and there's a possibility of it coming back, I've already told my girlfriend the moment the schedule comes out and Rockingham's on the schedule, I'm ordering. I'm going to be there. I don't care what I have to do. I will be at that race.
okay. What about you, Chris? You want to see it on the Cup schedule or stay on its own?
I'd rather see him replace one of the Phoenix races with it.
Fine with me.
I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, and as far as that's concerned, I mean, at this point anymore, I mean, I don't want to say that though because they usually turn out to be pretty good races. So I don't necessarily want to see Vegas lose a second race because I don't get a whole lot of opportunities unless I can find a way to come out there to see another race. But I would love to see, with that being the best racing that we have, We have plenty of tracks that the cars run like shit that I don't see why we don't go back to Chicagoland and Kentucky.
Yeah, Brett Griffin, formerly of Door Bumper Clear, he put a tweet up yesterday or today. He said, I never thought I'd say this, but drop Spring Bristol and go to Rockingham. And I was like, no. But
I don't know that I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't either, because as I told you all last week, all they need to do to make Bristol Bristol again is to spend the money that they were spending to make it dirt and repay the damn track to pre '07, and you got to sell out and what everybody wants again. No matter what the car is, you got to be on the bottom, and if you're faster, you got to bump them out of the way to get going. I mean, that's what that track was '07 and before. So if that's what people want, then why are we waiting? Why are we not spending the money to do it?
Well, for Bristol, not that I want to do it, dedicate a whole bunch of time to it, but their complaint about the tire not wearing or the tire, we're searching for a softer tire for places like Bristol. Well, if you can't make the tire softer, that's fine, keep it hard. You know how we solve that? Grind the whole fucking track. Do the whole
They
track,
did that.
did the top. No, they did the top, and that was it. Take the whole track and do what you did to the top a couple years ago when you turned it into a mini Darlington. Redo the whole thing. Just go through and grind the whole thing one time. That'll eat the tires, so that'll make it lay rubber and take rubber, and it'll put three fast grooves out there. And that would probably fix Bristol too without redesigning it. If you just went through and ground the whole thing.
The fans don't want grooves; they want one lane.
Oh, I know. We know what they want. We know some of them. I just think it's idiotic.
Yeah, you're still in a group with four of them.
So I I thought, yeah, we beat that to death on Bristol already. But yeah, I would be perfectly fine with your suggestion, Chris, taking one of the Phoenixes, or I'm not ready to give up Bristol yet because I don't think Bristol's the problem necessarily. I think the car is the problem still.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
and
still on team. Every race, every track gets one date. But
if it was if Bristol was the problem, you wouldn't see this problem also at Phoenix and at Martinsville and at Richmond. So, and to some extent Loudon, I just don't believe that the tracks are necessarily the problem with this car. Because look at how well the mile and a half tracks race. So it is very track dependent how this car works. So that's why I say before you go change the tracks in terms of making modifications to tracks to suit a car, I think you ought to go back and build a better car that works better at all tracks.
That
But
makes too much sense, though.
right, that's too much common sense. So we're not going to do that. But I would be okay with, like you said, getting rid of one of the Phoenix races so we can shift that. I think we agree we'd like to see it. We just don't know where potentially, but there's also merit keeping it standing alone. So we'll shift to non-racing weekend news now. One of the things that came out is we're expected
Right?
here in the next couple weeks that Miami is getting the championship weekend back. However, it's for 1 year, according to what that is being discussed. It's for 2026.
Good
Then
Lord.
it's supposed to go to another track for 2027, but it won't be Phoenix. So they're going to start that
it'll be
rotation.
Las Vegas.
That's my guess is it's going to go to Vegas next. I could
I'd
see
be
it
okay
going
with
to
that.
Texas, depending on what
I
happens in Texas. I could see it going to Texas again. You have to be weather dependent tracks. So much as I don't think Texas is the right venue, it's the right weather for a championship race, and it's the right size or style of track in a mile and a half. But the one thing they did say at the very end is while Phoenix is expected to stay in this rotation, it's also going to keep its two races each season.
So you're saying size matters?
Apparently, it's the first inch, the last inch, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Inch is an inch. So, uh, so that's good in my opinion. We're finally going to get away from the Phoenix every year or Homestead every year. I'm glad they're going to go back to Miami. But I'm more happy that we're not going to go to a track that favors the same person year after year after year. So you won't have a Penske 3-year sweep or a
No, now we'll just have a Hendrick 3-year sweep because if we're going to go to, because you got to look at Kyle Larson, you're going to go to a track like Homestead and then possibly Vegas.
Maybe, but it's two different tracks. That's not the same, you know, wall
No,
riding.
same argument applies though.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, but at least it's two different setups, different racing,
They'll,
strategies, styles.
they'll
So,
they'll still find a reason to bitch about it.
oh, I'm sure. But I'm glad that we're going to be leaving Phoenix as the final race. However, I'm not happy that they get to keep two dates. I feel like if you're not the championship race, you should lose that fall date.
Well, they're owned by IC. They're going to keep the damn date.
Lisa's
Bishop,
not going to let that happen.
yeah. Who owns the Rock?
The Rock is owned by a private group.
Can't remember who it was that bought it, but so
Yeah. Right now, the only tracks that have dates on Cup that are not owned by ISC or SMI is Mexico, um, Pocono, and there's one other, like Chicago, which is essentially ISC because it's a
Coda.
is Dover still
I'm talking about
independent?
the street
Dover,
course. Dover is owned by SMI.
okay.
I thought, what about Coda? I didn't think Coda, that was just contracted through
Coda, I
Marcus.
was getting there. Coda is one of them as well. Coda is run by SMI, but it's not an SMI track. It is basically a loaned out date by SMI.
So they whore out Coda then.
So
Correct.
so the question I'm curious about first off is if Homestead's going back as the championship race, do they still keep a fall date or they get one date a year for next year? One, so do you think they keep their
You mean
fall
a
spot?
I
you
And
think
mean a
they'll just
spring
get a
day?
one.
go ahead.
Are we talking about Homestead getting one date?
Yeah, yeah. So you think Homestead
Homestead's never
next
going to be
year?
two dates.
Okay. Well, the fact that it's going to be the championship race and it had the spring race this year, which again thought was a good race. Most people didn't. So I was just curious if with it being added as the fall, do you think it's the because it tends to be usually the other than Homestead. Well, I guess not. I was thinking from a pattern standpoint, but it was like that when it was under Atlanta. They'd come back there
In
in the spring and
in
fall.
2021 and 2022, Homestead was in the spring and not in the fall. 23, 4 was in the fall, and then this year is in the spring.
Okay.
So like they're flip flopping it around, you know, from spring to fall.
So if Phoenix isn't the fall finale, where do you think they shift them back to? First round,
The
second round,
from
third round,
second from last race, probably.
second from last race.
Phoenix, put it back where it was.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll be the what they call the penultimate race.
All right. And then it says it's expected to rotate in 2027. Well, if that means let's just assume it's Vegas. Vegas is in the first round right now. Where do you,
Vegas is in the second round.
or, sorry, it's the second round. It's been in the first round before, though.
No, hold on. It's in the third round, isn't it, Chris?
No, second round.
This year?
I believe so.
I know it's always in
No.
the playoffs,
It's
but for the most part, but
Oh, this,
it's been the first race of the third round for a
yeah,
while.
all right, I get
yeah.
it. I get it in Kansas confused a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
So if Vegas moves to the end in its year, does Miami then move out altogether? Or does Miami move to its spot? Or does Miami become the cutoff and then Phoenix shifts to a like I'm interested to see what they do with
I
some
mean,
of the
you might as
playoffs.
well just leave them where they're at and just alternate which one's going to be the final race.
I think what you'll see is what they're doing like this year. Like this year they got Gateway and New Hampshire in the playoffs. I think they're gonna rotate tracks that haven't been in the playoffs before into the playoffs. I think they're just trying to be fair about it, honestly. I think you'll even see a day where you might even see Pocono in the damn playoffs.
That would be interesting. I don't know.
Pocono, Sonoma.
See Pocono at the end. That would be an interesting one. All right. So then let's see. Other news. So they released the Hall of Fame class for 2026. They added Kurt Busch and Randy LaJoy to the modern. Oh, I'm hoping this isn't screwing up my stuff. Uh, but Kurt Busch gets added along with Randy LaJoy and then Jake Elder under the Pioneer ballot. So that gives us for
So
this year. Yep, go ahead.
list your whole list there.
That's what I was going to do. So for the modern era, we have Greg Biffle, Truck Series champion, Xfinity Series champion, tons of Cup wins, wins in all three series. Neil Bonnet, 18-time winner and consecutive Coke 600 wins. Tim Brewer, championship two-time crew chief. Jeff Burton,
That's a good one.
21-time winner. Southern 500 and Coke 600s, wins across NASCAR's top two series. Could have won a championship, but things just didn't play out that way. Kurt Busch, new addition, 2004 series champion, 2017 Daytona 500 winner. Uh, you know, his resume speaks for itself. Randy Dorton, engine builder for HMS, 9 championships of engines across NASCAR's National Series. Harry Gant, I think his time on this list is getting ready to come to an end if he doesn't get on there. 18 Cup Series wins, 2 Southern 500s. Harry Hyde, championship crew chief. Randy LaJoy, new addition, 2-time series champion in the Xfinity Series and North Series champion in '85. And then Jack Sprague, 3-time Craftsman Truck Series champion. So out of those folks, you can only pick 2 to go in next year. Who's your 2?
Kurt Busch is an automatic, and I'd probably go with Tim Brewer as a crew chief. I feel like, and if it's not Brewer, probably Harry Gant.
Torn for my picks. Um, like I mean, Tim Brewer, obviously, outstanding crew chief. There's some really good names on this list. I don't know that I think engine builders belong in the modern era so much as the pioneer. So I feel like Randy Dorton should be in the other category personally. I mean, there's no questioning his, mechanical genius. Those engines led to a ton of HMS prowess, but I would say of the
The
people on
the
that list,
Pioneer ballot, to get on the Pioneer ballot, you have to be on the main ballot for like I
yeah.
forget how many years, but then you get knocked to the Pioneer ballot.
So I think that's where if Harry doesn't get in, Harry Gant specifically doesn't get in this year, I think he's going to end up on the Pioneer ballot next year. Um,
I mean, honestly, if you're looking at it from that aspect when it comes to engine builders, I could see Randy Dorton being on the this era ballot as opposed to the Pioneer ballot. If I was going to put somebody on the Pioneer ballot when it comes to engine builders, I mean, I think Dorton is deserving of the opportunity to get in. But I mean, I think Doug Yates and Ernie Elliott would be better as far. I mean, just overall longevity. I mean, just the time when they came in the
yeah.
sport was way before Dorton.
Well, I think there's modern era ballot, and I think this is where NASCAR kind of screwed itself. When you look at what does it mean to be on the modern era? What is the definition of a pioneer? I think when you
Yeah.
look at that, so to your point, I think, Robert Yates and his son Doug, the Yates performance horsepower, the Randy Dorton horsepower, what Jake Elder did, what these various crew chiefs did. I think they're more of the pioneer, where the modern era, I think it should be more for the driver team owner type thing, as opposed to like I think the engineers belong more down in the pioneer because they've changed the sport from a mechanical standpoint, and air
Well,
standpoint. in some regards. That's just my 2 cents. When you think about what it means to be a
Well,
pioneer.
with that being said, I would put Randy in the pioneer aspect as far as I mean, definitely compared to what it's kind of hard to say because Doug Yates still has a big part in the engines that are built nowadays,
Yeah,
but how much is he really putting into the engines? I mean, that was the big thing. You wanted a Doug Yates engine in your fucking car before because you knew you were going to go out and you were going to beat everybody with it. Now everybody's stuck to such tight constraints that I think he still builds a great engine, but that's not the difference maker anymore.
yeah,
If that makes sense. I think the engine builders, Dorton. I mean, a lot of those guys. Yeah, I could see that coming from a Pioneer standpoint, where they used to have a hand, literally, in making something better than everybody else had,
yeah. Make a
and
custom
you
part. Like
really
I don't
can't
know.
do that anymore.
They've never mentioned who the person was that basically created. For example, I would love to see whoever it is within Joe Gibbs Racing that created those fucking super powered air guns that they had such an advantage with for changing tires. I think they deserve to be on a pioneer ballot. I mean, you made NASCAR
Yeah.
change the game and how we change tires because you took a tool, a common everyday part tool, and you didn't just reach for a little bit better. You redesigned, you reimagined what a pit gun could be. So that's where, just like I feel like Roush Yates engines, um, the Randy Dorton engine, like I think they reimagined what a race motor could do and how much power you could get out of things like that. So back to my original question, I would take Kurt Busch as an automatic to me first ballot. He's won in everything. He's a champion. He's won the Daytona 500. Um, he's won the All-Star race. Like they only mentioned the one race, but he's won several important races. And he's like a fine wine. He only got better with age. He damn near carried Finch's back marker car to a win. He made that car desirable for other people to get in you know, to redo their career. And then he did the same thing over at, he went over to Furniture Road, didn't he? If I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yep. So
He was the
yeah,
driver right before Truex.
yep, almost won there. Yep. Um, and then he helped Tony, you know, take him and Ryan Newman basically helped Tony build SHR into a powerhouse, and won along with Harvick and won several milestone events, Indy, Brickyard 400s and Daytona 500s and things like that. So he's my definite number one. Um, and then if I have to pick somebody off that list, even though there's a bunch of guys on here, that are sentimental favorites, I think if you look at it objectively, I feel like you either have to give it to Tim Brewer or you have to give it to Greg Biffle. And then I would look at Sprague and then I would look at uh LaJoy because of the tiers. But I mean, Biffle won championships during NASCAR's prime years in both the Craftsman Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, was runner-up to be a Cup Series champion and won a ton of races in the Cup Series and was, just a fantastic wheelman all around in everything he got into. I think he's one of those guys, kind of like Bobby, where I thought for sure he was going to be one of those guys that was going to check all three series championship trophies. The only guy I still see doing it based on the way they could do it would be if Kyle Busch decided to, when he was done cup racing full time, if he went and ran trucks one year full time, just to get that trophy and say I'm the only guy out there with all three trophies as a champion, which I'd still like to see him go do, because I think that would be an amazing stat to have and to have with your name alone to have all three of those trophies.
I think there'd be a lot of people sour about it, but I wouldn't. I mean, I think I mean, it's a legitimate possibility.
Yeah,
Go back and run with this kid.
heck yeah. I think that would be, run with his kid and win a championship or compete for a
Yeah.
championship in that final year, especially since they're not his trucks. It's not like he's going to be running KBM. He'll be running Spire or something else. So um, maybe even he goes back to Toyota after that. Depends on what their relationship is as he brings up his kid. But so then the others, we've got Pioneer ballot. So on the Pioneer ballot this year, you got Jake Elder, Suitcase Jake. You've got Ray Hendrick, Banjo Matthews, Larry Phillips, Bob Wellborn. Uh, Jake Elder was the new addition. I think it's hard to say how he won't be the immediate one. Um, that gets on there, just when you look at stats and name recognition. But the guys down here at the bottom, there's some serious heavy hitters when you're talking about. You got Elders, a three-time Cup Series crew chief, champion, Daytona 500s, Southern 500s. Ray Hendrick, 700 times wins, 700 wins across modifieds and sportsmen. I mean, that's a lot. Banjo Matthews, he's built more cars that have won races, championships than anybody. Uh, Larry Phillips, first 5-time series national champion for its NASCAR Weekly Series. I mean, when you think of 5-time consecutives, that's on its own. And then Wellborn, uh, you know, you just think about these guys at the lower level. Um,
But just Larry Phillips in and of itself. I mean, and I'm not saying this because Mark Martin champions Larry Phillips, but
yeah,
you go through and how many interviews have you listened to on the junior download that they've talked about Larry Phillips helping them?
yep.
It wasn't just Mark Martin. He's helped a lot of guys that have come in and made it to the Cup Series and been successful drivers that he had a hand in doing it. He never went there himself, but he had a hand in a lot of people that came into our sport.
Yep, I was thinking the same thing for Banjo Matthews as well because of his chassis and just how many, like, you wanted one
Yep.
of the cars. He left his mark on the innovation of the sport. I think he's rightfully in the right category at the pioneer level. I think it's hard to pick in that group. I think it's harder to pick than it is truthfully in the modern era ballot because I think every one of those people on
Absolutely.
that list is very, very well deserving. And you can only pick one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know who I'd pick. It would be tough. It would really be tough. I would
Mine's Suitcase Jake, personally.
want to
I
pick.
mean, I think Jake's an absolute shoe-in, but I think at this point, Phillips has been on it so many times. I think that isn't this his last opportunity?
Elder's been on there for a long time too.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's been on there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. If I mean the fact that those two aren't in, I think
I I'll say
is
this:
amazing.
there's people that are already in the Hall of Fame, and this is going to kill me to say it, that shouldn't be in there yet. And one of them is my driver, Davey Allison. He had 18 wins, and I think it was 18, 19 wins, something like that. And that's all he had. Yes, he was an amazing driver, and he was taken too soon, but he shouldn't be in there already.
Well,
Um,
I don't
same when
disagree
you
with
talk
that.
about someone like Jeff Burton. Jeff Burton, I mean, there's not a lot of
that's
drivers.
why Harry Gant's not in there yet. He's only got 18 wins.
There's not a lot of drivers that have double-digit wins in Cup. It's not an easy thing to do, and then it's not a lot of people who have double-digit wins in Cups and what do you want to call them? Crown Jewel events. Those were also not easy to do. But I think we got in a hurry putting some of those people in.
We should have went to three a lot sooner than we did. We had five. We were putting in five every year for,
Yeah, building up
was
our
it
Hall of
12,
Fame.
12 years? That's too many. It was too many, and now you struggle with trying to figure out who to even put in, and
Well,
it,
and tell me if I'm fucked up here,
you are.
Trailblazer. Yeah. Um,
Got to be
um,
faster than that.
yeah. Uh, why are we looking at it from the modern era? We have 75 years of this sport that's
This
run now.
what I just brought up is why they were doing 5 a year. They changed it to 3 a year. They call it modern era. It's not really modern era. Modern era is just like the newest
No,
comers.
no, I know, but where I'm getting to is even when they were putting more in at the beginning, why were we fucking picking more people out of the modern era than history? There's so
Because
many friggin' people that does it. Like I said, not even just ultimate NASCAR guys. Why is a Larry Phillips not in from when it first started? Why is Jake Elder not in from when it first started? Why are we putting more people in now from the modern era of NASCAR drivers that have had 20, 30, 40-year careers and put decent numbers on the board? But there's guys that pioneered this sport that may not have had those kind of wins, but I'm sorry, they did a lot more for getting the sport to where it is than some of the guys that are here taking advantage of it now.
Well, like to your point about that, just on that topic, think about people who aren't on there right now today who probably should be on there from a pioneer standpoint. I'm thinking, you know, forget what they did on the racetrack and on the pit box, which was extraordinary. Jeff Hammond and Larry McReynolds. What they were
Yeah.
able to do for multiple teams was extraordinary on the racetrack. But let's look at what they did for Fox and Fox's NASCAR coverage from the time Fox started covering NASCAR at the 2001 Daytona 500 and the innovation of the cutaway car and just all the different things they did to broaden NASCAR when they brought it to its peak. I mean, they were pioneers on how they brought mechanical understanding about the cars to the masses. When NASCAR was growing that fan base, I think they should be on there at some point. And when you take that and you pair that with their racing pedigree that goes with it, they should be an instant shoe in. Like, how do you argue? Like, I feel like we're basically you're playing you're pulling for the shortest straw, except for the straws you're pulling are pins out of hand grenades, and which one's going to go off in your hand because there's so many good options down there. You're bound to blow something up, basically.
I mean, granted, Burton's done a lot as far as announcing what he does actively for the sport inside the garage area. But
Yeah,
why in the
Mayor.
hell? But why in the hell would he be nominated before those two? It is a perfect example of what I'm talking
Well,
about.
yeah. The thing is the suitcase Jake is on his own deal, so you know, Jeff is just should be. He should not, like you just said, he should not be voted in. I don't think he should be even on the list yet.
No,
I,
no.
I just don't. I don't know how they figure this shit out, who's on it, but probably the same people that didn't nominate Jeff Gordon as the first unanimous Hall of Fame. Like, how do you not have like Richard Petty wasn't unanimous, Jeff Gordon wasn't unanimous, Jimmy Johnson was unanimous. Like, what are some of these people thinking when they vote? I know it's a totally different topic, but
yeah, there.
it goes with it. It goes with it. You like we don't have a unanimous pick yet, and it's just how. Like how is Richard Petty not unanimous, Dale Earnhardt, so on and so forth. It
I just still don't understand why the picks from yesteryear there's less of them going in than people now. Because the sad part is the people that are around now, people like Jeff Burton, I mean, even Jeff Hammond and Larry McReynolds, people are going to remember them a lot longer than the people we're talking about now. Oh,
Yeah,
even from our standpoint, other than the stories during broadcasts when we were growing up and stories that we're listening to now on the podcast, how many of the fans that are watching now that NASCAR is trying to attract know who the fuck Jake Elder is?
none of them.
But so why are we only nominating one of them at a time though? Why I just don't understand nominating more people from back then that have, like I said, in my opinion, have done way more for this sport than most of the guys that are around nowadays. I'm not saying the guys nowadays aren't deserving to be in there at some point, but we're I mean, it might sound funny, but dude, I teared up in the Hall of Fame. Going back and looking at some of that stuff from way back then was friggin' amazing. Just what those guys were willing to do just for the love of this sport that you think some of these guys nowadays would be willing to do half of what those guys even attempted?
Not the young guys, that's for damn sure.
No,
So when I look
no.
at that list, the problem I see is the wide-ranging NASCAR flaw that, like you talked about earlier, they put too many people in too soon, and as a result, you end up with oversaturation. Like when they were creating the Hall of Fame, they tried to make a one size fits all. That was their first mistake. There should have been a drivers Hall of Fame, a crew chiefs Hall of Fame, and an engineers Hall of Fame. And then there should be one for broadcasting. And you could be inducted within the NASCAR Hall of Fame umbrella because
Well,
it can have
also,
an impact in so many different ways. And you're trying to justify why, for example, why Jeff Gordon should go in there. Well, first off, he should have been there as a four-time champion just right off the bat, and the number of crown jewels should have been the end of the discussion. How it wasn't unanimous, I don't know. But then you look at, all right, let's add to it what he's done in the fact that he also went and found the only living, or no, not the only living, the the next seven-time champion in Jimmy Johnson. Rightly or wrongly, whether you like how he got it, he went and picked a guy that is even fucking better than him and was the owner of that car, put his money where his mouth was, that became the first five-time consecutive champion, unmatched in NASCAR history. Then he starts a children's cancer hospital. Then he goes into broadcasting, and now he runs HMS. Like he is undoubtedly should have been a number one universal.
Unanimous. Not even
Unanimous.
a first, not even a first ballot, but unanimous.
Yep, should have been unanimous, but people cannot separate their disdain for their biases, period. Same thing with Jimmy Johnson or Carl Edwards or, what some of these people have done for the sport, you know, that puts them there. Others that haven't, their stats. I think that NASCAR really to better it would be better off to kind of separate the categories out a little bit more and redefine what those categories are. Because when we talk about people like Randy Dorton, Doug Yates, Jim Brewer, like when he was on the DJD and he was talking about, because it was Tim Brewer, right, that talked about on Dale Senior's car with the switch that the spoiler would fucking lay down. Like
well,
that's
it wasn't Dale Senior's car, but
It
or
was Brewer.
it was Brewer that said it, but I think it was on Jimmy Spencer's car.
I just remember
Anyway,
he said, watch this, and he hit the button and it went down and like the guy had no idea about it. Just, that to me, that's innovation. That's a pioneer. Now, as a crew chief, he deserves to be in one category. But as a pioneer, like he made NASCAR go rethink about or how they do the templates, or like Slugger Labby when he said they snuck in there and changed the fucking templates. That was brilliant. First off, that was awesome to hear. But then second, they made NASCAR get tighter control of their inspection process. You know, so I would overall we were talking way more about the Hall of Fame than I think I expected
well,
to. But at the same time, I'm passionate about it because we've watched this sport for me, it's, 30 out of 40 years of my life at least. And I think what we're talking about is how some of these guys are unfairly not in while others are in that maybe shouldn't be in, or they should be in under a different premise. Not that they're accomplishment. It's hard to say that winning, let's just take Davey, for example. We don't know what he could have been. So I think the sentimental heartstrings help you there, get him in. But winning 18 races is still no small feat,
Not
and
for how
they
the short
weren't
of time he was in the sport.
for how short a time he was in the sport, the wins he did have, narrowly missing out on a championship, probably would have gotten one. But just look at how many people in Cup today don't have 18 wins that are in really good equipment, how hard it is to get there. So, I mean, I don't think that Jeff Burton is undeserving. I just don't think he's more deserving than somebody like somebody who has multiple championships across multiple disciplines and wins. He does deserve his spot, for example, but where it's hard to rank those for me because when you look at the stats and where he's won, I mean, those aren't small accomplishments. Not everybody can be the champion. So you still got to value the other people because the champion only looks so good if they're racing other people that were just as good.
Yeah. Also, I think I know we weren't going to be we didn't think we'd be on this topic very long, but something that NASCAR should have done was taken the MLB approach in the sense of if they don't get I think it's 2/3 of the votes for a specific somebody, they just don't have anybody in that year. You know what I mean? Like if you don't get so many votes, sorry, it don't just go by who has the most. It's it goes by percentage of votes. And if you don't get, I think it's like 66% of votes, then there's just nobody in. And I think that they should look at that because, for instance, the year that Gordon got in, he wasn't unanimous, but he would have got in because all but I think it was two people voted for him. Whereas, who knows what happened with like Carl Edwards and
Yeah.
Dale. I'm sure Dale Jr. had a shit ton, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, there's one more category we got to talk about. There's the Landmark Award, which I don't even know what the premise of this one's supposed to be. I feel like this is their catch-all because these are people in their own right that, should be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And this gets to my point of I think there should be different categories. Alvin Hawkins, NASCAR's very first flagman. That's an important role. Lisa France Kennedy, don't think she belongs on that list at all. As the executive vice chair, one of the most influential women in sports. I'm not saying she's not important, but I don't think she's not a trailblazer. She's not like the first. So to me, she's on there because of who she is, not really what she does. Her parents were the ones that were the trailblazers that built this sport. I don't really know what she's done. You don't hear anything about her to know what she's done to be worthy of anything.
Yeah, if you're
Uh,
going to do that, you might as well put Brian in too.
right. With his DUI and all.
Yep.
So now this one I think definitely belongs on there. Dr. Joseph Mattioli, the founder of Pocono Raceway, a
Yep.
very unique racetrack, the only triangle racetrack, absolutely a landmark thing. Like everybody's like, no, we build circles, dude. Well, watch this. You're gonna
Yeah,
race,
hold my beer.
you're gonna race geometry at high
So
speed.
was he? Did he build that before Nazareth?
I don't remember.
Sorry, I had to ask.
No, it's a good point. And then there's Les Richter, executive overseer of competition, grow the sport on the West Coast. I would need to know more because they don't really highlight what he did. I'm sure it's important, but if he's the one who's responsible for California's Speedway being sold, you're off my list, bro. And then the last one. So when I look at these five names, three of them I think are most deserving of being on there, and the other two have me scratching my head. The last one, Humpy Wheeler, president of Charlotte, former president of Charlotte Motor Speedway, without a doubt, the most innovative promoter in NASCAR history. And without him, you don't have Eddie Gossage, who, took that to the next level in Texas. Most of the time was really good. Some of it was stupid, but I think Humpy is, definitely, but I think Humpy belongs in the pioneer category.
Without
Yeah.
Humpy Wheeler, you don't have the one hot night.
Yeah, you don't have the All-Star race at night without Humpy Wheeler.
Not only that, but I think I would put him up there with the Pioneer. Honestly, more people know the name
Yeah,
nowadays than Larry Phillips. But it's another one just like Larry Phillips. How many people has he had a hand in getting them in the sport?
yeah,
Ultimately, had no affiliation with any team, but probably got more people headed in the right direction or an actual ride, sponsorship, and you name it in this sport, just like Phillips did, that than any fan nowadays will ever understand. probably
Yeah.
more than we'll ever understand.
I
I
just
mean,
think
we've heard tons of stories, but it's amazing what these guys did for the growth of the sport.
when I think of what Humpy Wheeler did for the All-Star race, what he did for Charlotte in the Coke 600 or the World 600, the amount of asses and seats he put over the years of his career through his promotion techniques. I mean, he should be if you were to put him up amongst all the if you just put all these people up there, to me he would be a first ballot person because without him, I don't think you have the NASCAR you have today. You don't have
No,
the let's go racing under the lights. Let's go, you know, the $1 million prize that, came along with the All-Star, and then you've got the Winston Million. Like he's one of those people that is a truly unique visionary that and you all you have to do is look at the way the other promoters promote their races. You don't see it. Him, much as I can't stand Eddie Gossage is right there beside him with the I'll set up a boxing ring in the middle after the short track race at Bristol, let him go at it, or that's the kind of stuff that generates ratings, and ratings are what put people eyes on the TV or asses in seats, and those people do not get enough credit for helping the sport get where it is and keeping it from dying a slow death, and going away so fast. So for
you mean
me,
NASCAR's not running correctly?
who knew, right? Like they fired Humpy and they got Eddie to resign. Uh, Noticeably, they're both SMI people. So as soon as Big Bruton stepped aside, I feel like as much as Dale loves Marcus,
Marcus.
Marcus, shit on two of the people that made SMI what it is. You know, Without those two men, Texas and Charlotte are not the valued properties they are in terms of their places in the schedule and in NASCAR history. No question.
Not
So
only that, Marcus also de- defunct Kentucky, and that was his dad's like
he fought
whether
for
you
how
want
long
to
before
admit
that?
it or
Yeah.
not, whether you want to admit it or not, that was his dad's pride and joy when he died. When
Yep.
he the fact that he bought Kentucky, he was so proud of that place because he saw what we did. We were selling out Busch Series races year after year after year after year. They fucked up the first year and didn't have enough parking, and it kind of went on a downward spiral after that. But if you would have had a promoter like Humpy Wheeler that would have just been able to do the easy thing and go, "Hey, we got parking now," boom, you're back in it. And now you've got the only track that your dad truly cared about is sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah. I really, everything must evolve, and I understand that. And I guess you could look at Humpy and Eddie as like Barnum and Bailey circus promoters to an extent, like their time in the sun, and like you needed to change how you promote things. But at the same time, the way they promoted things lasted decades, not just years, but decades. Where I think that we haven't had the we haven't had the Roval yet for a decade, have we?
No, it started in 2017.
Okay. So to me, that's the first thing that Marcus Smith did that might actually eclipse a decade in existence. He tried Bristol Dirt, that didn't work, lasted 3 years, had to bail on that idea. I will give him credit for the Coliseum concept, but ultimately it became played out very quickly. So like I give him like 50% credit. Good for the innovation, failure on long term because I think we can all agree that the majority of fans didn't stick around that were part of that, show mentality that they were trying to create. As opposed to what you saw at Bowman Gray this year, that was real NASCAR fans. That was genuine purist, um, people that that are have been and are always. So I think Marcus is very much trying to be his dad, and he's failing spectacularly at it.
I thought it was kind of funny to sit and listen when even the stuff that went on at the Clash, the amount of people that showed up for the concerts and didn't stay for the race.
Yeah. Well, that's to me, that's further proof NASCAR's marketing to the wrong people.
Yeah, people showed up because they were offered a cheap ticket to get in and watch somebody like Ice Cube perform,
Yep.
as opposed to trying to buy tickets at an Ice Cube concert, which are friggin' outrageous from what I understand.
Yep.
So they bought a NASCAR ticket, went to the concert. Concert was over, they left.
But yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of Marcus Smith. The only thing I'll say he did, and he didn't, it's not like he did it out of the goodness of his heart or with his own money. He used COVID money to do it, but saving North Wilkesboro. So again, you get another feather in your cap for that, but it's only like half a feather because that wasn't like it came out of SMI's pocketbook. Most of that came out of the
Ours.
the taxpayers of North Carolina specifically.
You're welcome, everyone.
So, um, if you can't tell, I'm not a fan of Marcus Smith. Never gonna be from what I've seen
Barely
so
noticeable,
far.
man. Barely noticeable.
Fairly noticeable, but that's okay. So that's all I've got on the Hall of Fame. We covered the three
Same.
categories and who's in there. Anything else y'all want to talk about with that before we move on?
We only got what one more topic, which is a
I've
funny
got
one.
well, there's two. We'll save this one should be short and sweet, but in a very quiet press briefing release, NASCAR has changed its Drive for Diversity program to the Driver Development Program. And they did so very quietly. I can't help but think maybe it's political or not, but the number of other institutions they're backing away very, some quietly, some very publicly, from their push for diversity because it's blowing up in their faces. And pushing off, their consumers, constituents, whatever you apply it to, sports marketing, politics, whatever the case may be, that you know, and I'm not sure that it's done what it was achieved to do anyway. I think it should be rightfully, I think it's called what it should be now, driver development program. You know, you're supposed to be out there finding the next best driver. Race, sex shouldn't be a part of it anyway. We're not trying to hit a quota. We want the best, 26, 36, 15, whatever, cars on track. That should be the goal. Men, women, black, white, age, doesn't matter. And all you have to do is go look at Formula One to see that that's an attainable goal. They've got the best of the best over there in their group for open wheel drivers. And same thing for IndyCar. IndyCar is a is basically a soup bowl, mixing bowl
Yeah,
of international world class talent. Uh, you know, both American and
I think the only thing the top three series are missing when I say top three series, F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, Cup, is a female driver. That's the
yep,
only thing they're missing because in F1 you have Yuki Tsunoda as he's a Japanese driver, I believe, just by
yep,
the name. And then
yep,
you got Lewis Hamilton. Was he a seven-time champion?
yep.
And
African American British driver. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So and
not African American,
then
just black British driver. He's obviously
yeah.
not. He's very British. Sorry about that.
But then, in IndyCar, same thing. You've got all these. I think they're missing a. I don't think, to my knowledge, that they have a black driver in IndyCar. I don't think so.
Maybe at
But
next, but not at the top tier.
yeah, but you know, we there just needs to be a female driver that can finally jump over the hump and be in one of those top series and actually be good.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at it from the perspective of all the different, if the goal for it was to drive diversity, well, you've got Brad Dougherty, Michael Jordan. Okay, so you've got two very successful
They're
male
trying to run Michael
athletes.
Jordan off.
You're not wrong. We're gonna get to that. That's the last topic.
Well,
Um,
I thought there was a Talladega topic.
oh yeah, well, all right. So there's two more than tiny ones,
Son of a bitch.
but then you've got Bubba, you know, very successful, won races at multiple levels, African American driver. You've got Raja Carruth has won, working his way up. So you've got plenty of, Daniel Suarez, Latino champion. So you've got, I think it's achieved its goal. I think they need to round it back out it should just need to be about getting the best talent on track, period. Um, so your
So in
Talladega,
other words, You're
Yeah, go
saying
ahead.
we need a woman to get over the hump to get there instead of using the hump to get there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. And I don't want to leave out, our Japanese American champion, which is Kyle Larson,
Yep.
that they never mention or
Yep.
even think about mentioning.
You
look,
mean the
like,
one?
look, he said
You
that
mean the
slur.
biracial driver that got booted out for being racist?
Yeah,
Yes,
Weird.
that guy.
Weird.
yep,
Weird.
yep. The biracial driver who got thrown out for being racist.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, racial slur. I shouldn't say that
Yeah.
he got thrown out for being racist, but hey.
Well, for perceived racism. He said something stupid and almost lost his job. Instead, uh, came
Oh,
back.
he essentially lost it.
Well, he did
I
lose his
mean,
job, but
yeah.
John Edwards got it back for him. Uh,
All
Too
right,
bad.
so what's the
So Denny was okay because he's just white though.
yes?
Oh,
I
okay.
turn now.
Yeah. I saw everyone out you now and fucking that was okay. But yeah,
yeah,
all right.
It was only okay because the person who was directed at it laughed at it.
yep.
You're in
What
Nancy.
Larson said wasn't fucking directed at anybody, so who got offended by it?
I'm just saying the only
Now we're
reason
gonna
it
get
was
I
okay.
know what the fuck you're saying, dude. I hate fucking talking about this because they made him into they made an example out of him and it was fucking completely stupid. I mean, fucking yeah.
is
Let's move
this.
on.
Here's what it was.
That's
NASCAR political winds going that way. We're going that way. Doesn't the
yeah,
common
yeah,
sense was not even its factor in this deal.
So NASCAR said, "I turn now."
Yep. How much blinker
yeah,
I need to cross the eight
yeah,
lane? I turn now, everybody. Good luck, everybody else.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
It just yeah. I'm done talking about it because yeah, well, I'll definitely end up getting us fucking booted off this shit.
Oh yeah, we're probably canceled already. So
God damn, dude, that drives me up the wall.
um then there's the fun I'm looking for. There we go. The fun of the troll account that trolled the whole Dale Jr. Nation thing. That was awesome. That sent out an email
Uh,
and posted it on Twitter, and it looked real. That basically, we know some people who took the bait. That basically said
You took the bait.
all eight
Let's
gear.
just put it out there. You
So
took the bait too.
I was like, "Is this real? You sure about this?" I'm like, "Let me double check." I was like, "Oh man, if this is true, this." Well, I did pressure it. Like, this would be ridiculous. Like, how would you enforce this? But they basically took and trolled the whole Dale Jr. NASCAR nation and said all eight gear is banned at Talladega due to the lawsuit with Lamar Jackson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the trademark over the eight. And I was asking myself, like, how would you even police that? He doesn't own the number eight. He owns a likeness of a couple different iterations, but you're like, well, nobody is allowed to be 8 years old anymore. You're just Lamar years old. Okay, that's it.
the same way they banned the fucking Confederate flag.
Yeah. You really want us to get canceled, don't you, Chris? Like, this is
I'm
our
just saying.
Be quiet, Chris. Shush. Isn't there a way to mute him? How do you do that? Hold on.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb. When I saw it, I immediately blocked the account because I noticed it said the Daily Down Forward instead of Down Force, and I
Yep.
was like, "This is bull crap." And then I saw you post, and I was like, "Oh, Alan took the bait."
Well, no, what I did was Kevin posted it, not our Kevin in this group, but Kevin in the other group. I'm like, so apparently Talladega are idiots. And then I posted the thing and I'm arguing with Kevin. I'm like, are you sure this is right? This can't be real. And I go look at it and I'm like, it's a fake. And then I come back and I tell you all it's a fake, that I thought it was stupid. But by that point, it's like, I did give it more than 2 seconds of brain cell thought. Like, would Talladega basically the Jerusalem, the Mecca. I was gonna say Jerusalem because I can't say it. So the Mecca of Dale Jr., like this is the shrine to Dale Jesus and drafting, essentially, above Daytona. Would they really ban all eight gear? Like that, all you would do is get a bunch of Dale Jr. fans to shave the number eight in their back hair and show up and be like, "Game on, motherfucker!" So,
uh,
and you see it on TV, and so you know it's not a lie. They do it. So,
they'd be destroying mullets just to put an eight on the back of their head.
right. So, um, very interesting that I got to give, as much as I hate that clickbait crap, Touche.
It was a good
Well,
one.
well
That's
played, gentlemen. Well played.
uh,
That was that.
It's a couple weeks too late on the April Fools, but it worked.
Yep,
yeah.
that was nicely done. Um, and then the last one, it was very quiet, but so NASCAR
They should
last
have immediately
Thursday.
posted. They should have immediately posted that Dave Chappelle gif right after that, about a half hour afterwards. Gotcha, bitch.
Gotcha, bitch.
Yep, yep, that was a good. I mean, I got to give him credit. That was a good one. Like some stuff you see right through, others like makes you go do your homework. That was a good one.
Alan, I legit, when you posted that, I was sitting on my couch and I looked up in the air and I said, not Alan, too.
uh,
Because I had seen it like about 10 minutes prior and I didn't screenshot or anything and I knew it was bullshit. And then you posted, I was like, no, he didn't. He did not take the bait.
I'm like as a Talladega parent. Well, I was saying we've got more to talk about today. I said apparently Talladega is run by idiots. And then you're like, what are you talking about? And I posted you the things, and I'm like, as I'm posting, I'm like, this can't be real. I was literally searching for it in the background, like, is this real? And I only got two responses, and obviously they were fake.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
uh,
got me. So and then lastly, on lawsuit news, NASCAR quietly updated their stuff after discovery. It amended its claim in the antitrust suit, and what they did was this. They said after the deadline for filing counterclaim, the teams produced more than 200,000 pages of emails, texts, and memoranda that indisputably confirm what NASCAR had alleged in its counterclaim that 2311, Front Row, and Curtis Polk knowingly entered into illegal agreements with other teams on issues such as fixing the compensation that they received from NASCAR and allocating how they compensation would be divided among co-conspirator teams. It was basically NASCAR saying what we alleged is what happened based off the paper trail they now have. But what makes it conspiratorial is that they used a middleman, Jonathan Marshall of the RTA, as the conduit to kind of go between. So I'm curious what all was in, when we first talked about the lawsuit and what this could mean and all the different things in discovery. We talked about all the, if you go down this rabbit hole for discovery and we end up in a court of law, people are going to get subpoenaed, people that aren't even part of this thing, like Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske. And I mean, we've seen news articles where they've tried to, like, we want to know all the financials of the NBA and the NFL and like Formula One. And everybody's looking at them like, fuck you. No, I'm not telling you how we run our business. It's none of your business. But what they're trying to do is say how NASCAR is like these entities in some ways and unlike them in others to show how the charters or franchise models would work within, because Formula One essentially has spots on the grid that are more or less franchises. You have um, the
They are
NFL,
franchises.
they're through, so they're trying to leverage that part, but it's interesting. We're kind of slowly starting to see what's coming out of Discovery. I'm hoping that some of this stuff becomes public record so we can read it and see what the communication was between the teams and the open discussion like they had earlier. So
My thing is I don't see how any of that matters. The whole thing came from there's two things that are the main thing to me. The first one being NASCAR comes out at 6 p.m. and says you have till midnight to sign this.
and you don't even know what all's in it.
Yeah, you don't know what they've added. You don't like. I mean, we're not talking about 5 pages of contract here. We're talking about hundreds of pages, and you're going to have them 6 hours to sign it.
yeah, yeah,
That's nonsense. That's number one, and number two being is this is about using name and likeness more than anything else, and you're basically trying to stronghold Michael Jordan into saying we can use your name and likeness of your team whenever you want. That's just not. I don't see NASCAR winning this
Well, the
ever.
key point for that being for their own financial gain, but then
Hmm.
NASCAR doesn't um, not progressively, they don't recompensate the teams for that financial gain. They're only still their contention is we're giving you money from the purse that's from the TV deal. We're not giving you money from the gambling, from the merchandise, from the Netflix series, from all these different other income streams that NASCAR is bathing in cash from. That's the part where the teams are saying this is an unfair monopoly, and it is.
It
We'll
is.
see if they win it, but I mean that's the big thing. So I just thought it was interesting that that little piece right there with all the counterclaim was quietly done. Wasn't a big news
Well, it was
item.
quietly done because it's nothing.
Yeah,
It is, in my opinion, it's nothing. You have to go and email people to see if they'll get in on it, right? You need to see if
yeah,
Rick Hendrick wants in. Need to see if Roger wants in. You got to see. How do you do that? Just behind closed doors? You're not going to go, hey, come over here and let's talk about this. They're going to email them. Who cares? I mean, that's why it was quiet. That's why I didn't hear about it until you just brought it up because it doesn't help them at all, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Well, apparently the teams hired the wrong people to take care of that, though. They should have set up a contract there with Hillary, and there wouldn't have been any emails to find.
I
But
think they should have found. I think they should have got Paul Heyman personally.
don't do that.
So we've got the last thing is where uh we're back to racing this weekend. We basically are starting the season over, uh, right back at a restrictor plate track or tapered spacer or whatever crap you want to call it at
All
Talladega.
drafting tracks,
Track,
sir.
speaking of track.
It's
Okay.
restrictor play tracks. I don't give a shit what you say.
Yep. So it's the restriction of fun is what it is. But
Yep.
we're starting back over at Talladega. But the big thing
Oh,
after that,
I just came up with a new word for them. Restrictor
Nobody
hate
cares.
tracks.
yep. But the thing that comes after it is three consecutive mile and a halves. You've got Texas, Kansas, and Charlotte, and the All-Star sits in between there. But for points, you've got three consecutive mile and a halves following that. So if you've been good at the mile and a halves, been gathering points, I don't see how after if he doesn't win at Talladega, I gotta feel like Blaney's gonna win Texas. Larson, I think will win Kansas.
You think Blaney's going to win Texas?
I do. With the speed, I do. I think Blaney's gonna win Texas. If he can keep his
I,
win,
I,
that's
I
fine.
am not being biased at all here. I'm just going off of the last two races at Texas. The
Oh,
5 car was the fastest, and just the team slash driver. The two races ago, the driver was an idiot and was racing Bubba Wallace when he didn't need to be and wrecked the car. Had the most dominant car that day, and then last year the team decided not to put the tire on all the way, and they lost the tire while leading.
Okay, that's fair.
So if anybody beats the 5, it'll be because the 5 beat themselves,
no.
as usual.
Well, let's go back 1 week here. So Bristol, Goodyear, 400. So Darlington, Homestead. So looking at the last bigger tracks, Homestead, Darlington, and Bristol. Darlington's hard to take anything away from because he, took himself out. But uh, anybody not think Larson just obliterates the field at the Coke 600 if they don't have any mistakes, assuming everything goes smoothly at Indy.
Well, the thing with Andy is the moment there's any weather, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's going to be at the 600. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But with that, he's going to have to start last unless they amend that rule. So I don't know about obliterating them, but if I mean, Allgaier drove the car up to 13th, and he was a lap
Oh,
down at one point. So if Justin Allgaier, who barely drives a Cup car, can do that, I'd say Larson could, like you just said, wipe the floor with him.
Yeah. I have a feeling like the Coke 600 is going to be the Kyle Larson 600, except for it's going to be about 400 laps of him, 400 miles of him kicking their skull in once he gets in the car, or gets up front.
it's gonna be like watching trucks again.
And that's just what's going to happen, I think. I think because we didn't change this car very much over the off season, like, you saw the dominance at Homestead. I think you're going to see that, and I think we would have seen it at Darlington too, truthfully, had he not had any issues. So I'm kind of
So,
expecting the same at the 600, and you know, yeah, I have a
so,
feeling what's going to happen.
who wins Dega? And do we think that anybody pulls out of the fuel mileage crap and just goes for it and just pedal to the metal?
No, I think we're stuck with that fuel mileage crap, even though I very much would like to see him do what you're talking about. Drop the hammer and pull the train and force
I,
everybody to
I
race.
personally think if you're get Joe Gibbs and you're Rick Hendrick, you get you put you put Denny Hamlin, uh, Seabell, Larson, uh, Byron, and Barry in a circle, and you go, hey, we're wanting to try something. Let's get you five together and just you guys are the five winners this year. Just all out. You have nothing to lose. Just go
Yeah.
all out
Yep.
and see what
Line up and
happens.
go.
Line up and go. See what happens, and let's try to get out of this monotony that is drafting tracks right now.
Well, what's going to happen when NASCAR gets mad though? Because then they're not running a big pack, and you're not wrecking 27 cars at once.
What?
I
Oh,
don't
did
know.
you see the squirrel in the track? Gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Fucking keep throwing
So,
cautions.
but so that's all I got.
Yeah. Who we got winning?
Ah, shit, I don't have my book.
Well,
Uh,
just based off of just what comes to your head right now.
I think I potentially picked Busher on this one.
You did, but I'm asking who you think now.
if you had
Mm,
asked me 4 races ago, before Cindric started stepping on his nuts every week doing dumb shit, I would have said Austin Cindric because I mean he was the class of the field in the
I
first two.
still say Austin Cindric.
And I think he's still going to be there, but I think the other people have had a little time to maybe research their stuff, so maybe Blaney.
yeah, Blaney with the not. I mean, I mean, you can't say the overall speed, but just the. How can you ever go against a fucking Penske car?
At a drafting track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but like I said, I still don't necessarily know that I would shy away. I mean, the speed and the results definitely haven't been there like they have been the last couple of years with him, but I still wouldn't necessarily count out Busher either.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, so everybody's had a break. We're gonna find out who came back off over the off weekend ready to go because they're gonna have to fight like hell for the next 18 to get
Yep.
to the end. So, I mean, or 17. Yeah. So it should be very interesting to see. We saw last year after the break, RCR came back ready to rock and roll, and that was later in the year. We'll see who comes back, who maximized their time off.
20,
Uh,
28 straight weeks to the end. This is going to be the longest stretch that
yeah,
NASCAR has ever run of races in a row. Just
Which
week by
is
week.
which is completely idiotic.
yeah. The one
It's
group I'm
NASCAR. How can you say that?
110% sure did not get a break. The 12 pit crew. I guarantee you, none of these guys picked up eggs with their kids. They were all, you want to collect eggs? I'll paint lug nuts for you. Here, it looks like
yeah.
an egg. Put it on the fucking car.
Yep.
You can just go find the lug nut spindle. Go.
Yep.
All right. You get enough of these right, you can go count eggs. Oh, you didn't? I'll
Yeah.
line back up and go again. So,
Well, good show, and
yep. Yep.
I hate that it was Chris's last one, but it was a good show nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well, as
Oh,
always,
that's
I
going to be your
can't.
defense for you guys to stay back on is just getting me booted.
I'm just screwing with you because you keep
I
saying
opened
I
that
can't
door.
believe y'all keep having me.
Uh,
Yep. Remember that time
Oh,
we got canceled and then came back next week? Yeah, that'll happen again.
Yeah.
We just keep on coming back
Yeah.
like a bad rash. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you, and I'll get her uploaded. Thank you, everybody who listens. Follow us at UF Race Fans. Leave us a comment,
on it.
shoot us an email.
We messed up there.
Yep.
It should be FU race fans, but hey. Uh,
We did miss a golden opportunity there.
oh, damn it.
Just think of a race fan, only fans for race fans that, you know, I could just see. Here's Chris. He's got his hat on, his beard,
All right,
his
I
backhand,
gotta
a
go.
little bit of oil.
Good show, everybody.
And then he's like, see the burnout on the chest hair?
How do I get out of
uh,
So, yeah, anyway, now you see why our other guys quit already. They're like, these guys are, no, we're out.
uh,
All right, until next week, gentlemen, we'll see what the racing weekend brings us. Talk to y'all
okay.
later. Have a good week.
this? Bye
See ya.
bye.